So in this episode, we're going to take a look at liking tweets. I've just added this bar across the bottom with icons and whatnot for replies, retweets, likes, and share. It's just static HTML at this point, and just a bunch of SVG icons from hero icons. I just wanted to do that ahead of time so I'm not boring you with HTML. So the first thing we'll do is run bin_reals generate model like, which will belong to a user and will belong to a tweet. And if we go in here, we can see that the migration's set up correctly. That should be all we need. So we'll run our migrations. Next, we'll generate a controller called likes. So we'll say bin_reals g controller likes. And then inside our likes controller, we're going to have a create and a destroy. So create is going to like a tweet and destroy is going to unlike a tweet. And then we can go here and we'll say private set tweet, because these roots are going to be nested, and we can say before action set tweet, and we'll load up the tweet by saying @tweet equals tweet.find params tweet ID and hit save. And then if we go to our roots, we can go and add these as a nested root. So we can say then resources likes only, and then we'll pass in array of symbols and say create and destroy. And then if we go here and we say bin_reals routes and grep for like, we can see we've got tweet likes path, which will post with the tweet ID, and then to likes, and then delete with the tweet ID and the like ID there as well. So now we'll go ahead and open our request spec. So if we go to spec requests like spec, and so if we go then to spec fixtures and create tweets.yaml, and if we go into users, we can see we've got Pete. So we'll take that and we'll say Pete's tweet, and then we can say user Pete body hello world, and let's hit save and see if that's all we need. So we'll go to likes and we'll just say we've got a tweet, which will be Pete's tweet, and we also want a user, which will be users Pete, and we want to log in as well. So we want to say before sign in Pete, and here what we want to say is post tweets tweet ID likes, and we'll add a spec saying it likes the tweet, and we'll say it is idempotent. So if you like the same tweet twice, it won't create multiple likes in the database. We can take this as well then and say delete for likes ID, and then we can say it unlikes, doesn't dislike, I'd say unlikes the tweet, and again is idempotent. So if you call destroy and the tweet's already destroyed, it should continue to work. So we'll go ahead and try liking the tweet first, and we can say expect to change like count by 1, and then we can say post tweets tweet ID / likes, and then we can also say expect response to have HTTP status of success. And then we can even look up the like and say like equals like dot last, and we want to just make sure that like dot user is equals user, and I've made a mistake here, that should be user, and like dot tweet should equal the tweet. And then if we open up our like model, just make sure that it's got belongs to user and belongs to tweet in there, which it does. So we'll go ahead and run this spec. And as you can see, expected to change like count, but did not. So if we go to our likes controller, and then we come in here and we say like.create, and we'll say user is current.user and tweet is tweet. We'll run this again, and it now passes. Now we aren't putting out anything in the response, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So the next thing we want to do then is the idempotent test. So we'll go in and create a tweet first, or create a like first, sorry, and then we want to assert that it won't change, but it's still a successful response. So we can go in and say like.create user tweet, and then run this, and this should fail. So it's creating 2 likes. So we want to go into likes controller then, and basically do like.where first or create. Run this again. That works, and if we run both of those tests, they now both work. So we'll take this and go on over to the unlike, and basically what this should do is expect it to change like count by -1, because we want it to delete a like. So if we go and we'll copy this, and then we'll say delete, and we'll also grab the like here and put like.id in, and let's run this, and that fails as well. So again, we don't really need the like ID. We can just look it up in the same way, where we can say existing like equals, and then we can say if exists, or we can say existing like dot destroy, and that's because we need to change that to find by, and now that works. And then if we go ahead and run this again, and we take out like ID and just put in 1, and we'll say that it doesn't change like count, and that passes. So if we run all of these, all the tests pass now for our likes. So now what we want to take a look at is going into our tweet component and where we have the like button. So it's right here. I think what we want to do is instead create a like component that can kind of encapsulate all of this. So if we go in and say bin rails g component, and we'll call it like, so we get our like component here, and we can already go ahead and implement this. So we'll go and render it. So we can say render like component.new, and we can take all this HTML and paste it into our like component template and hit save. And then if we come back, reload, that's still working. Our like component's going to need some options, so we're going to need to have an adder reader for the tweet, and then we're going to take that in the initialize method. So we'll say tweet, and then at tweet equals tweet, and then we can say is it liked, and then also we can say like count. So like count, we can basically call on the tweet model. Maybe likes count is a better way of calling it. In the future, we can come back and change this into a counter cache column, so it's not looking up the number of likes in the database. But for now, we'll go to our tweet model, create a likes count method, and we'll just say likes.count. And we're going to need to go in here and say it's expected to have many likes. And if we run this test, it's going to fail. But we can just put that in. And we can also then put in dependent destroy here. So if the tweet gets deleted, the likes will get deleted. And now that passes. So likes count should now work, and we can go back to the tweet, go back to the like component, sorry, and figuring out if it's liked or not. We can basically check tweet.likes.where user is current.user.any, which will just do a count on that relation and check if it's been liked or not. So we can then go back to the like component, and in here where we have 0, we can first of all change that and say likes count, and then we can also check here and say if liked and we can put in this SVG instead, which is filled in SVG rather than a hollow one. So we can save that. The last thing we want to do here then is turn this whole thing into a button. So we'll go here and we'll say button 2, and we'll pass a block for all our HTML. Then we also want to set the URL for this. So what we want to do is we'll call it form action URL, and we'll set this in our component. And in here, what we can do is if liked, do one URL, else do another. So we'll go back here and look at the roots, and we'll say Rails roots pipe to grep like. So we've got tweet likes path, and that's if it's not liked. So we want to like it. So tweet likes path and press in tweet. And then if it is liked, what we want to do is tweet like path, the tweet, and we need to pass in the like. And maybe here what we do is instead we can say current user like. Make that a find by. And then liked can just basically say if that's present. And so current user like then can be used in here. And that's fine. And then the next thing we need to do here is form method. And so if it's liked, we want it to be delete. and if it's not liked, we want it to be post before create. So we can go in here and we can say form action URL. We can then say method and say form method, and we can put the class on this button and also the title. And I guess we want this to be button title as well, because in one instance it's going to be like, and the other it's going to be unlike. So again, I'll go in here, button title, if liked, unlike, else like, and hit save. So now if we come back, we hit reload, get missing keyword tweet. So we need to go to our tweet component, pass in the tweet here, reload this, and now this works. So we're getting the wrong icon. So let's go to like component. If it's liked, yeah, these need to be swapped around. So that one's heart fill, and this one is heart outline. Reload. And so now if we click this, we get nothing happens, but we should be sending off a network request. So it's going to the likes controller and liking it. So if we reload the page, now you can see we get the like, and now we just want to update our view. So again, clicking this is disliking it, and reload, that works. So basically we want to respond to this with a turbo stream. So if we come back here, and what we want to do then is in this like component, basically give it an ID. So we can say ID, which will be tweet. We'll say tweet.id, like button, and then we can go to our likes controller and we can render turbo stream. We'll say turbo stream.replace, and the first param to this is the ID, so it'll be tweet.id, like button. What we want to replace this with is the like component, so we want to say like component.new, tweet is at tweet, and then we want to say render in view context. And again, we'll do the same thing, so we'll maybe just say render like component. And we'll do the same thing in destroy. So if we save this, go back, reload, and there's a little bit of a bug here. So the ID that we're replacing with turbo streams is going on to the button, but the button, because it's a button2 tag, gets wrapped in a form. So we need to move this ID up into the form itself. So if we go back to our like component and where we have our ID here, I think what we need to do is say form ID, and let's try that. And so now the ID is on the form itself. So if we reload, click like, we get our like, unlike, and that's working perfectly. So I hope that helps and shows you how easy it is to use turbo streams to update just a very small portion of the page. And I think this pairs really nicely with view components as well, because it gives you an easy way to just re-render that one component. In upcoming episodes, we're going to take a similar approach to doing replies and retweets as well, where we can just re-render those components.